Let the house please be in order. Please stand as we are led in prayer. The gentleman from Jefferson, Representative Harness, will introduce our guest minister for the day, and then please remain standing after the prayer for the Pledge of Allegiance. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before we start, I was inspired by a gentleman from Adams, and I have a quote of my own today. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts, Winston Churchill. And so we're going to continue to have courage, and we're not going to give up the fight, no matter how many times we fail. I want to introduce you to the Minister, Mr. Reverend O'Quinn. He's also a Justice Court Judge out of Franklin County. He's the pastor of St. Mark's Baptist Church. He's going to do our prayer today.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here. Representative Harness invited me here and told me that I would be here at 1:30. I got here at 1:15, and I thought, well, they're just like my church. Let us bow. Our Father, in humble obedience to your word, we make intercession on behalf of those who are positioned of authority in our great city, state, and union. We pray that they make decisions that we may live peaceful and quiet lives, marked by the godliness and dignity that is within each of them, given by you. Our Father, we pray for the Senate and House of Representatives as they make laws to govern our land and delegate our state with its vast resources. Please grant them wisdom to allocate resources wisely. Our Father, I pray for each of them. Bless them, be with them, protect them, and guide them. It is in his name we humbly pray. Amen and amen.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hoorah. Very good. Judge.
Open the machine, Madam Clerk. Close the machine, Madam Clerk.
There's a quorum present, Mr. Speaker.
We will have the reading of the journal. The gentleman from Rankin, Representative Powell, moves we dispense with the reading of the journal. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Report of select committees.
We have none, Mr. Speaker.
Report of standing committees.
We have reports on the calendar, Mr. Speaker.
Introduction of bills and constitutional amendments. Gentleman from Marion, Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the reading of the introductions.
Is there objection to this? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, we will follow that procedure. Resolutions, petitions, memorials, and other papers.
We have none, Mr. Speaker.
Introduction of guests and visitors. Gentleman from Washington, Mr. Hines.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, if you'll help make welcome a two-time Teacher of the Year recipient and a dear cousin of mine in the North Gallery, Miss Anitra Cooper. Please make her feel welcome.
Gentleman from Jones, Mr. Scoggin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've got two guests that I would like to introduce. First of all, in the North Gallery, Ms. Amanda Mills and Mr. Randy Smith from Dixie Electric Power Association. If y'all would stand and give them a welcome. And the rest of the crew. Also above me, Dr. Patricia Tibbs, who is the Vice Chairman of the Mississippi Academy of Pediatrics for the state of Mississippi. If she would stand, and have the privilege of getting to work with her every day. So thank y'all for being here.
Gentleman from DeSoto, Mr. Eubanks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, in the North Gallery, a good friend of mine, Dr. Reverend Kenny Digby, who led us in a powerful and an amazing devotion this morning. But I'd also be remiss if I didn't tell everybody here that he and the Southern Baptists are hosting a breakfast for all of the membership tomorrow morning at 8 in the Baptist building.
Welcome, gentlemen. Gentleman from Harrison, Mr. Hullum.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. In our North Gallery, we have two great Americans from the Mississippi Gulf Coast up here today to witness history in the making with them coming up with their organization. Ms. Letitia Bryant is a technical expert with the Social Security Administration, and my friend, Dr. Tracy Daniel Hardy, she's the Director of Technology for the Gulfport School District, the first Vice President of the Mississippi Gulf Coast alum chapter of Delta Sigma Theta. Let's make them welcome.
Gentleman from Lafayette, Mr. DeWeese.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Down here today with the doctors, help me make welcome a doctor from Oxford, Dr. Tanya Fitz. She's in the South Gallery here.
Gentleman from Union, Mr. Creekmore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to welcome to the gallery leaders from 4-H from all across the state in the South Gallery, and remind us all that the 4-H's stands for Head, Heart, Hands, and Health. Welcome, 4-H'ers.
Welcome to you all. Good to have you here today. Gentleman from Sunflower, Mr. Anthony.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And ladies and gentlemen of the House, when I first got here, I introduced myself as a gentleman from Indianola, and I wanted the House to know that there are two famous people from Indianola, that's B.B. King and myself. And today we are so privileged to have the Executive Director of the B.B. King Museum here with us, along with the former Educational Director of the B.B. King Museum and a retired teacher in our North Gallery. Would you help make welcome Executive Director Malika Polk Lee and Ms. Verna Beeman Ransom.
Gentleman from Lowndes, Mr. Kareem.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, if you would, please make welcome in the North Gallery the Lowndes County Port Director, Mr. Will Sanders. If you will, please make him feel welcome in the House.
Gentleman from Oktibbeha, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I'd like to introduce, and I don't know if she's here or not, she's a 4-H'er who actually is probably still showing her prize cattle today. Her name is Morgan White. She's a sophomore at Starkville Christian School. And in 2024, she was the 4-H parliamentarian, and also in 2023, the Mississippi Star Junior Cattleman. She allows me to show her prize heifers every year, heifers, goats, and soon to be bulls. So thank you to the White family. And oh, there she is. Everybody give her a round of applause. Wonderful.
Lady from Hines, Miss Yates.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If everyone would help make welcome Dr. John Vanderloo, our doctor of the day. He is my constituent and the owner of Vanderloo Family Medicine in Madison.
Welcome, Doc. Good to have you with us today. Gentleman from Jackson, Mr. Barton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the North Gallery, we have two good friends with Singing River Power, Brian Huey, and Nick D'Angelo.
Lady from Humphreys, Miss James Jones.
Good evening, Mr. Speaker, and to all the members of the House. I am so very proud to say that today has been Delta Days at the Capitol, and that's Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I'm sure members of the House saw us in our red, and we're so happy to be here. I know that we have coming in over on the South Gallery women that will be coming in just a moment. The members of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, they may be on both sides. Please give them a huge round of applause.
All right, I don't see any further introductions. I believe our head page, Drew Black, will introduce our pages for the week.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week we have 7 pages. They are Cameron Jeffries from Raymond, John Lewis from Clinton, Mary Landrum Love from Starkville, Jenny Mae Purvis from Raymond, Kristen Smith from Terry, Zion White from Bolton, and Jacoby Williams from Clinton. Thank y'all.
All right, I believe we have a special guest. I'll ask the Sergeant at Arms at this time if he will escort our special guest. All right, the gentleman from Walthall is going to introduce our special guest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, we have a special group of young people here today with us, Mississippi 4-H leadership. We have our president with us, John Kitchen, in my back end, the state director, Miss Linda Mitchell. And in the South Gallery, we have the leadership team and state officers. Make them feel welcome. At this time, I will yield to the president of Mississippi 4-H for to address the House. John.
People can be divided into 3 groups. Those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, and those that wonder what's happening. We Mississippi 4-Hers, we're in the first group. Just as alumni 4-Hers Bill Waller, Thad Cochran, and Faith Hill dreamed of success, 4-H continues to instill the same determination to succeed. And maybe one day, a new generation of 4-Hers will be able to fill those seats that you are sitting in today. Speaker of the House, distinguished members of Congress, it is my high honor to be able to address you today. I want to thank you for supporting 4-H, because supporting 4-H means supporting the future leaders of Mississippi. In a world where so many teenagers cannot find support, 4-H is a beacon. 4-H offers support to Mississippi youth and has been doing so for the past 116 years. Whether it be mentors who guide youth, friends who are there for them, or challenges that force them to overcome, 4-H is designed, like our motto says, to make the best better. I've mentioned 4-H on the state level, but at the end of the day, 4-H is made on the county level by ag agents, 4-H leaders, and parents who volunteer. There's a saying my 4-H leader told me when I was 9 years old. You have one hand for helping yourself, and the other hand for helping others. And I think that encapsulates the message of 4-H. Sure, we want to help ourselves and be the best that we can be, but what good is that if we don't help our fellow Mississippians? I'd like to now formally invite you to the 4-H reception at the Trade Mart from 4 to 6 this afternoon. Thank you.
Very good. Thank y'all for being here. All right, if y'all would direct your attention to the well, I believe we have another special guest who I would ask the Sergeant at Arms to bring them in at this time. And I would also ask that you give your attention to the gentleman from Rankin who will present the resolution that we are presenting today. Gentlemen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to go to item number 4, House Resolution 21 on the rules calendar, and call it up.
You're recognized to explain the resolution.
After we vote on this, I ask that the gentlelady speak on the resolution.
All right, gentleman calls up House Resolution 21. If you're in favor of the resolution, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. I recognize the lady.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, we are so delighted today to have the ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated here today for AKA Day at the Capitol. And we have some very distinguished guests who are in the gallery and who have been with us actually all day. As many of you know, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated is the oldest Greek letter organization in the United States. And it was founded on January 15th, 1908 on the campus of Howard University. We are led by our international president, Danita Anthony Reed, and we are so happy today to have with us our Southeastern Regional Director, Dr. Tracy Morant Adams, who is from Alabama. We also have our Southeast Coordination and Social Action Coordinator, Ms. Demetris Williams-Wells. And we also are pleased to have with us today Ms. Leah Holder-Wiggins, who is the Southeast Region Representative, International Connection and Social Action Committee Chair. In the gallery, we have with us some of our former regional directors. We are pleased to have Mrs. Vanessa Rogers-Long, who is with us. Yes. We also have Mrs. Juanita Sims-Doty, who is with us, and also Mrs. Mitzi Dees Page, who is with us. And you will also notice, ladies and gentlemen, that we have two very distinguished members of our body who are members of our sorority, Miss Latasia Jackson from Panola County, and also one of our newest members, Mrs. Grace Butler Washington, in addition to myself, who's also been a member. So we're just pleased to have the ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority here throughout the day. And our particular theme this particular year has been soaring to greater heights of service and sisterhood. And I would like to, at this particular time, on behalf of SOAR Latasia Jackson, also SOAR Grace Butler Washington, present these resolutions to our Southeastern Regional Director. Thank her, as well as the ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, for their many years of service. Thank you.
All right, I recognize the Chairman of Rules for anything further on that rules calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to call up items 1, 2, and 3 on the rules calendar, please.
You want to take those up in block, gentlemen?
Yes, sir.
Does anyone wish to have any of these 3 items set aside? Gentleman from Jefferson, Mr. Harness, for what purpose?
Introduction is the proper time, Mr. Speaker.
I'll get you in just 1 second. Same for you, gentleman from Warren. Okay, gentleman has moved to take up these first 3 items in a block. That's House Resolution 18, 19, and 20. Any questions on the resolution? I don't see any. If you favor these 3 resolutions, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The resolutions are adopted. Thank you, gentlemen. All right. Gentleman from Jefferson, you're recognized.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to turn your attention to the South Gallery, where we have a beautiful lady from Warren County. And if you're the organizer, she's affectionately known as Mama Brave. Will the House please make welcome Miss Zelmarine Murphy?
Welcome, lady. Gentleman from Warren, oh, he waved it off. Gentleman from Washington, Mr. Hines, for further introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the senior gentleman from Washington County and myself, we'd like to ask the House to please make welcome some adorable, especially my classmate. She doesn't look like she was in the class with us. I look much older than she does. Ms. Sheila Smith and Justice Court Judge Laverne Simpson, please help make them feel welcome in the House of Representatives. Oh, and Beverly Courtney. I didn't see you, Miss Courtney.
Welcome, ladies. Lady from Humphreys, Miss James Jones.
Good evening again, Mr. Speaker, and to the House. In the South Gallery, we have visiting with us this afternoon the Honorable Lou Ann Williams, a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority from Hinds County, and we have Miss Joyce Nunn, who is the manager of the G.A. Carmichael Clinic in Humphreys County in Belzona, Mississippi. We have visiting with us Miss Shalandra Sandy Kerr from DeSoto County, visiting with us as well, and from LaFleur County, Mississippi, the Honorable Dr. Carissa Brown, McFarland Brown, as she also represents Mississippi Valley State University. So glad to have the ladies in the house.
Gentleman from DeSoto, Mr. Hall, for further introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like the House to make welcome one of my constituents, the esteemed woman from DeSoto County and also a woman of distinction from Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Ms. Teresa Isom in the South Gallery. Welcome.
Gentleman from Hinds, Mr. Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Also, I ask you to join me to make welcome in the South Gallery. I see one of my former colleagues in law, who's now a great lawyer, Gayla Carpenter Sanders, who's an AKA, and next to her, the niece of former colleague Jim Evans, Ms. Lori Hill Marshall. So I ask you to make them welcome in North Gallery. I see Ms. Candace Simmons, who helped us with our Martin Luther King breakfast this year. So thank you so much. And Ms. Jackie Anderson also, I see up there, with Jackson State, who's the daughter of former Senator Doug Anderson. Thank you.
Gentleman from Holmes, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, also in the South Gallery, we have a former city council member, also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority for the town of Carthage, Miss Miracle Matlock. Let's help welcome her to our cabinet and make her welcome.
All right, I don't see any further introductions. We will go to the calendar. Chairman of State Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to go to House Bill 777, item number 1 on today's general calendar. Call it up and make the usual motion.
Gentleman calls the bill up, moves the rules be suspended, the bill considered engrossed, read the third time, and placed on final passage. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Gentlemen, you're recognized to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, over the years, many of you have come to me and the chairman from Panola and the chairman from Rankin and have said, when are we going to bring some common sense to our alcohol public policy and laws? When are we going to bring Mississippi into the 21st century? Well, now is the time. House Bill 777 is a small bite at the apple to moving Mississippi forward, getting Mississippi into the 21st century, and opening up our alcohol laws. It removes prohibition, ladies and gentlemen, and I say that it is a small bite at the apple because we're not changing the restrictions, and this is very important because a lot of you have had many questions on this issue. We are not changing the restriction and the prohibition of the sale of alcohol, aka spirits and wine, in counties. That has no effect at all on the sale of alcohol and wine in counties. Secondly, we are not changing the establishment of those qualified resort locations that we have presently. No effect at all on those. And the reason that we're not changing the prohibition on the sale of alcohol and wine in counties is because we want to take a very slow, methodical approach. We've got some issues with some tax issues in addition to law enforcement. But we will, over the term of this session, look at our alcohol policy in toto and what we need to do to change it. Now, 777, House Bill 777, removes prohibition. It does not change those three issues that we have in place now. Now, it will go, so what does it affect? What are we changing? We're allowing those cities that are under 5,000 in population and are located in a dry county to go from dry to wet. And what does that mean? Members of the House, if you think about it, we are having a resurgence in this state in tourism with our smaller counties. A lot more people from the rest of the country and from other states are coming to not just our larger cities to visit, spend time, spend money, create economic activity and tax revenue in our in our larger cities, but also to our smaller cities. This will allow restaurants in those smaller towns with a population of less than 5,000 people to go through the permitting process, if they get the permit, to be able to have on-site premises sales of alcohol and wine in those restaurants. Ladies and gentlemen, in those smaller cities, this bill will allow those cities to have and get the permit for a special event. And at that special event, to sell wine and alcohol. This will allow our smaller cities, just like our medium to larger cities, to have tasting events and special sampling of different types of alcohol and wine if they get the permit. So it's something that's going to move Mississippi forward. It's going to help our smaller cities without question in terms of tourism, economic activity, create tax revenue to give our smaller cities in this state a fighting chance. Now, for those cities and counties who don't like it, they can opt out. They can become dry. How can they become dry? They can have an initiative, and it's pretty simple. It takes 1,500 of the qualified electors, or 20% of the 20% of the qualified electors, whichever is less, to get on the ballot. If it fails the first time, members of the House, they can have another election 4 years from now. So the initiative and the referendum process is pretty simple. Now, some of you had an issue with these counties that become wet and were originally dry. What if they vote out and go back to being dry? Will those cities be grandfathered in? Or will they be locked in place and not be able to have a referendum and an initiative? Well, after I finish my explanation, the gentleman from Rankin, the distinguished chairman from Rankin, will have an amendment to take care of that, to grandfather those cities in, just in case the counties opt out to go dry. I'll be happy to take any questions, but Mr. Speaker, that ends my explanation.
Gentlemen, you want to handle the amendment before we... It sounds like it's fairly substantive to the issue before you start interrogation.
It is, Mr. Speaker. I recognize the chairman and the gentleman from Rankin to handle the amendment.
Gentleman from Rankin, you're recognized to explain your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this is pretty straightforward. Currently, this is current law that if a county votes to go dry, then the city may end up coming dry. What we did in this amendment was we removed that portion of it. No matter how that city or municipality became to go wet, whether it was through election, whether it was something we did, however they became wet, come January 1, 2025, which is when this bill takes effect, any city or municipality that chose to go wet will remain wet. We're just grandfathering them in. It's a simple amendment. I'll be happy to answer
Are there
your
questions on the amendment? I don't see any. Chairman, wish to respond at all?
No, sir, Mr. Speaker.
Question occurs on the adoption of Amendment Number 1 to House Bill 777. If you favor that amendment, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Now, questions on the bill. Gentleman from Washington, Mr. Hines.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gentleman Yield.
You're my good friend always.
Is there anything in this legislation that deals with direct sales, or where you can mail wine and liquor and stuff from other states?
Gentlemen, that is a very good question, and you probably get those same questions from your constituents just like I do and many members of this House, but there's nothing in this bill containing or pertaining to that subject matter. But it is something, like I said, that's the big picture of bringing our alcohol public policy into the 21st century, and I promise you we'll take a look at that.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
Gentleman from Hines, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Gentleman Yield.
Yes, sir.
I didn't get it perhaps, but you probably brought it up. Will this be an individual petition for cities less than 5,000, or would it be a blanket opportunity for all cities under 5,000 to participate?
Well, it will be a blanket requirement, but it will be decided upon by each city on a city-by-city basis.
So individual city basis?
Yes, be individual, yes, sir.
Wouldn't it be more feasible to just let it be blanket?
Well, it's blanket in terms of the effect of the legislation, but each city will have the opportunity to have their own referendum and initiative.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Gentleman from Covington, Mr. Sanford.
Gentleman Yield.
Yes, sir.
Admittedly, this is not my area of expertise, so I just want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. So this would in no way affect dry counties?
In the county, no. It will affect dry cities under 5,000 in dry counties.
Okay. So I happen to live in a dry city in a dry county. Okay. So how would this affect my town?
Gentlemen, the first question is your city under 5,000 or over 5,000?
Under 5,000.
They will go wet, and they will have the opportunity to have a referendum and an initiative to opt out and go dry.
Under current law, are they able to go wet now?
Under 5,000, no, sir, unless it's a county seat, then they will have that option.
Okay. And you said this does not apply to liquor, is that right?
No, it does apply to liquor and wine. It does not apply to beer. Beer is a completely, just for reference and educational, beer is a completely different code section. And by the way, it's very ironic. Whenever this very legislative body passed beer, back in, I think it was 1934, it actually made the entire state wet for beer. So it was treated just the opposite from alcohol and wine. And gentlemen, I might add, I mentioned over the years how some of y'all have come to us and say, hey, we got to make a change. But something that really stuck with me, and one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up, there's a handful of y'all that for personal reasons, either for personal reasons or you come from a dry county, you come to us requesting a qualified resort in that dry county. And I just don't think that's fair to put y'all in that situation to have to come to us and you oppose it because of either personal opinion and beliefs or because you come from a dry county to have to come to us and carve it out with a qualified resort. It just doesn't make sense. It's not good public policy.
Is there any specific reason why we would not just allow these municipalities to have a referendum themselves to go wet instead of making them wet and have to have a referendum to go dry?
Well, they may be in a dry county, and that changes the dynamics, as I'm sure you're aware of.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, law enforcement may get involved, political issues, what's happened in the past. It'd be a lot easier just to go wet and let them opt out if they want to and go dry.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, sir. Anytime.
Gentleman from Tishomingo, Mr. Carpenter.
Thank you. Gentleman Yule.
Yes, sir, Mr.
I've
Chair.
looked through the bill, try to find, does this allow wine in grocery stores?
It does not.
Okay.
Lady from Pearl River, Ms. Wilkes.
Thank you. Gentlemen, will you yield?
Yes, ma'am.
I just need some clarification. I'm a little confused now. So now we're talking about population and things. So I guess just the simple way to ask you this, now is every city and county, do they automatically go wet? Doesn't matter really the population, or where's the population coming in? I'm just
It goes wet, but we're not changing, again, we're not changing the restrictions and the laws that are in place concerning the prohibition of alcohol and wine in counties. That will still be restricted and prohibited. It does not change that.
So it's just for cities?
It's just, the effect is just for cities, for our cities in this state with a population of less than 5,000.
Okay, so what about cities and counties with more than 5,000? That's where I'm not going with you.
Well, they can already vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gentleman from Forest, Mr. Watson.
Yes, sir, Mr. Speaker, if the gentleman will yield.
Yes, sir.
How many cities would be impacted by this bill if it passes?
That's a good question. I believe it's either 3 or 4 that are completely dry, which will definitely be impacted, and I think we have maybe about 21 or 22 that are semi-dry, where the county is dry and the cities are wet.
Okay, but if this bill passes, you're saying the policy of this state would be, the state would be wet.
The public policy is that the state, we're taking prohibition off the books. The public policy is to turn the state wet without changing the restrictions, once again, that we talked about.
Okay, and could you tell me who's pushing for the passage of this bill?
Our fellow members and the citizens of this state.
Fellow members and citizens. Okay. Any organization, any groups actually pushing for the passage of this bill?
Not that I know of, sir.
Okay. But it does place upon the citizens of those small municipalities the burden of pushing it back to dry once this legislature, once this House of Representatives, in conjunction with the Senate, creates it as being wet.
Gentlemen, I don't know if I would call that a burden, but it does. If they want to go dry, they would have to opt out and have the vote. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Gentleman from Prentice, Mr. Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. But Gentleman Neal,
Always to my good friend.
you've done a real good job on this, and I appreciate that, but I need some clarity on one thing. On a city that's in a dry county, and this is under 5,000 population,
Okay.
this will legalize the the whiskey and the wine, but it still will not legalize beer, right?
Well, beer is in a whole different code section, so whatever is in place for that city does not change. Now, let me add one caveat. It's going to make that city under 5,000 population wet, but they still got to go through the permitting process. The restaurants will still have to get a permit. Your special venues will still have to get a permit. The cities that want to have a festival and be able to sell alcohol and wine will still have to get a permit, but it will allow them to do so.
But they cannot be permitted for beer.
Unless that's the case now.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
That's
yes,
what
sir.
I understood. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Lady from Lowndes, Ms. McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Could you tell me how many municipalities, approximately, if you know, that are under 5,000 that are currently in a dry county that will now become automatically wet as a result of this legislation?
That's a very good question. I don't have that number. I'll be happy to get that to you, but I can tell you we only have 3 or 4 counties that are completely dry. So it's not going to be that many, but I'll be happy to get that number to you.
Do you think it's 100?
No, I would say if I had to take a guess, I would say less than 50.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Gentleman from Newton, Mr. Rushing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Trying to wrap my head around this, gentleman. Municipality, population under 5,000, and this law passes, and you said they still fall under the same restrictions and guidelines of having to get permitting and all that. I understand that. What about for a liquor store? The same process?
No effect on the regulations.
So they still have to get a permit.
And the permits, we're not changing those, absolutely.
All right, but in essence, if someone, when this law passes, I assume effective 1 July?
January of 2025.
Okay, so that does give an opportunity for a municipality to hold a referendum and go back dry should they do so prior to 1 January.
Very good point, Mr. Chairman. It gives them plenty of time.
Okay, but and the answer is there's 300 municipalities in this great state, but you don't know how many we're going to affect by passing this law.
I do not. Like I said, I'm sure it's less than 50, but I can, as chairman of municipalities, I'll be happy to get you that information.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
Gentleman from Harrison, Mr. Hullum.
Gentleman yields?
Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, are you aware that at the height of the Iraq War, it was authorized for soldiers to drink, correct?
Yes, sir.
And gentlemen, will you agree that in these dry counties, there are military veterans who served this country, gave their life for this country? You agree that they should be able to drink in their own home without going to another county or city, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Not just military members, but all citizens of this state.
Gentleman from Neshoba, Mr. Bounds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Chairman, disregarding a city being wet for liquor, under this legislation in a dry county, this legislation passes, will this negate the need for further qualified resort area legislation down the road?
No, because you can do qualified resort locations in dry counties.
Okay, so even though the county may come wet, even though the county would come wet under this legislation, if you had an area that needed to be a qualified resort area, we still need to do that.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Gentleman from Hines, Mr. Banks, for a further question.
Gentlemen, I just need a little help. I come from Wet County, and I think I might have some questions about this later. Could we meet over a drink over this later and talk about it?
All right, I don't see any further questions.
Final passage, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman moves final passage. Open machine, Madam Clerk. If you favor the bill, vote aye. If you're opposed, vote nay. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Close the machine, Madam Clerk. By a vote of 92 yeas, 21 nays, the bill passes. Chairman Judd B. Thought y'all were ready. All right, Chairman passes. Gentleman from LaFleur, Mr. Osborne.
I spotted one of my constituents in the North Gallery, a distinguished professor from Mississippi Valley State, Ms. Barbara Washington, a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha. Would you make her welcome?
All right, I think that concludes our work on the calendar. Announcements by the clerk's office. I have an announcement. We will have page pictures immediately upon adjournment today.
County Affairs will meet 10 minutes after adjournment today in room 401A. For tomorrow, Appropriations C at 8:30 and 201A. Wildlife will meet at 10 in room 114. Corrections will have a joint meeting with the Senate at 11 in room 201H. Appropriations B will have a full committee at 1:30 and 201A. Medicaid will meet tomorrow at 3:15 and 113. And Constitution will meet after adjournment tomorrow in room 114.
Pro Tem informs me that the Management Committee will also meet immediately upon adjournment. Gentleman from Hines, Mr. Bell.
Adjourn in memory of Mr. Speaker.
You're recognized.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me as we adjourn in memory of former JSU football player Richard Castor, who passed away on Friday. He played during the 70s at JSU and was a draft pick of New York Jets. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Gentleman from Harrison, Mr. Felsher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Reminder, the Mississippi Optometric Association is having a legislative lunch day tomorrow, February 7th. That will be from 11:45 to 1:15 at the Mississippi Museum of Art, and it's my understanding they will provide transportation via bus at the High Street entrance. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Lady from Forest, Ms. McGee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Madam Clerk announced that there would be a Medicaid meeting tomorrow at 3:15 in room 113 for the committee, but I'd also like to extend an invitation for any member of the membership. Director of Medicaid, Drew Snyder, is going to be there and just kind of give us a very general overview, kind of a Medicaid 101. And since there's been a lot of talk about Medicaid this session already, I'd like to invite any member of the body to join us tomorrow at 3:15.
Thank you, lady. And for those of you that don't know, the lady who just spoke is also the Distinguished Pine Belt Citizen of the Year, and we saw her see that award last. Even her home folks like her. Gentleman from Benton, Mr. Massengill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, MEC Legislative Breakfast is in the morning at the Mississippi Arts Museum, and our very own Bill Piggott will be speaking at 7:30. All invited.
Gentlemen, you going to update them on pecans? Where are we on that day? Or honeybees? Gentleman from Jackson, Mr. Geis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to remind everybody you have an invitation on your desk. Mississippi Ports Council is having a legislative meet and greet at the Mississippi Trademark this evening at 5:30. Please stop by and show your support. They surround our state with opportunities for employment and servicing many industries around our state. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Gentleman from DeSoto, Mr. Hawkins. He's Panola.
How about Panola?
You're Panola. Our board's showing you, they've moved you to DeSoto, gentlemen, but we'll work on that.
Not quite.
I know where you stay.
Adjourn to memory.
You're recognized.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House, when we adjourn today, please do so in honor of Ms. Sherry Walls, who lost her battle with cancer. Ms. Sherry served Lafayette County as Chancery Clerk for 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. We will do that. Gentleman from Simpson, Mr. Wallace.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the final week for our collections of the Sailor Junior Champions, so if you intended on contributing to the Sailor Junior Champions, I need to get your money this week. Thank you.
Gentleman from Lauderdale, Mr. Calvert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Got an announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, you should have seen an invitation for tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. in the Rotunda. You're all invited to the Max Hall of Fame induction. Appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Gentleman from Itawamba, Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow morning at the Baptist building over here across the street, they'll have a legislative prayer breakfast for us. So be there at 7:30, and they want everybody to come.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, I don't see any further announcements. I'll recognize the gentleman from Rankin for the motion.
I move that the House stand adjourned until 2 p.m. tomorrow.
Gentleman's motion is the House stand adjourned until 2 p.m. tomorrow. If you favor that motion, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House is adjourned until 2 p.m. tomorrow.